think Jaxson Dart is closer to 2 than he is to 4, 5, or 6.
I might hear Roger Goodell say the name Jaxson Dart before I hear him say the name Shedeur Sanders.
The New York Giants select Jaxson Dart. Quarterback going to New York. Eli Manning.
The sun beats down on a dusty practice field in Roy, Utah. No cameras, no scouts, no fanfare, just Jaxson Dart, alone with a football, running the same wing T handoffs that have buried quarterbacks for decades. His arm, the one that would eventually break records, stays tucked away, hidden, forgotten. 3 years of this. 3 years of handing off, blocking, surviving in an offense that treated quarterbacks like glorified running backs. Flash forward to April 2025, the NFL Draft. Detroit's Ford Field buzzing with anticipation. The New York Giants are on the clock with the 28th pick, a selection they traded up to make. General Manager Joe Schoen steps to the podium, his job hanging in the balance. Head coach Brian Daboll watches from the war room, knowing this moment could define his tenure.
With the 25th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Jaxson Dart, quarterback.
Not Cam Ward, not Quinn Ewers, not even Bo Nix. Jaxson Dart, the quarterback with war paint smeared across his cheeks, reckless fire in his chest, and a story that shouldn't make sense. From Zero Power 5, offers to first round pick. From wing T prisoner to SEC record breaker. From USC castoff to potential franchise savior. 2 moments, 1 impossible journey. This isn't just a draft pick. This isn't just another rebuild. This is a revolution wrapped in eye black and small town grit. A bet that the quarterback no one saw coming might be exactly what a desperate franchise needs. Because sometimes when everything safe has failed, you don't need polished. You need dangerous. The New York Giants didn't just need a quarterback. They needed a lifeline. By April 2025, desperation had settled into every corner of the organization like smoke after a fire. Daniel Jones, the face of their future just 6 years earlier, was gone. Released, failed. The quarterback they'd built around, invested in, and defended had crumbled under the weight of injuries, inconsistency, and an unforgiving New York spotlight. For the first time since Eli Manning's retirement, the Giants entered a season without a clear answer under center. Head coach Brian Daboll felt the walls closing in. After a magical 2022 playoff run that bought him credibility, the subsequent collapse had stripped it away. Injuries, regression, offensive stagnation, the blame landed squarely on his shoulders. One more disappointing season, and he'd be joining the coaching unemployment line. General Manager Joe Schoen's situation was equally precarious. He'd torn down and rebuilt the roster, spent in free agency, invested in the offensive line, and upgraded the defense. The foundation was set. But foundations don't win games, quarterbacks do. And after years of patient rebuilding, ownership demanded results. The 2025 draft wasn't just another opportunity. It was their last bullet. So when the Giants traded up into the late first round, it sent shockwaves through their fan base. They already had Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston on the roster. Veteran stopgaps signed to bridge the gap. Why reach for a developmental quarterback when so many other needs remained? Because Jaxson Dart wasn't just another prospect. He was a statement, a declaration that the Giants were done playing it safe, done settling for mediocrity, done accepting their role as NFC East afterthoughts. They were swinging for the fences and betting everything on a quarterback who didn't fit the mold. To understand why the Giants gambled everything on Jaxson Dart, you have to understand how far they'd fallen. The Eli Manning era ended in 2019, taking with it the last threads of championship DNA. For 16 seasons, Manning had been the steady hand, the clutch performer, the face of a franchise that twice conquered the Patriots dynasty. His retirement didn't just create a void under center, it stripped away the team's identity entirely. Enter Daniel Jones, the 6th overall pick in 2019, blessed with elite athleticism and a rocket arm. The early flashes were intoxicating, scrambling away from defenders, launching frozen ropes downfield, carrying the team on his back through late-game heroics. For a moment, it felt like the Giants had found their next franchise quarterback. But moments don't last. The injuries piled up. The turnovers multiplied. What once looked like growing pains began to feel like permanent limitations. Jones could make spectacular plays, but he couldn't make consistent ones. He could win games, but he couldn't carry a franchise. The coaching carousel didn't help. Pat Shurmur lasted 2 years. Joe Judge managed 2 seasons of discipline without development. Each regime promised to unlock Jones's potential, but each failed to deliver sustainable success. Brian Daboll's arrival in 2022 sparked hope. The former Bills offensive coordinator had helped Josh Allen transform from raw prospect to MVP candidate. If anyone could fix Jones, it would be Daboll, and for one magical season, it worked. The 2022 Giants overachieved their way to the playoffs, riding Jones's mobility and a stingy defense to their first postseason appearance since 2016. Daboll won Coach of the Year. Jones earned a massive contract extension. The future looked bright. Then reality hit. The 2023 season began with Jones suffering a torn ACL in Week 5, derailing any momentum. Backups Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor kept the team competitive, but the offense sputtered without a legitimate starter. 2024 brought Jones back, but not the same player. The explosiveness was gone. The confidence was shattered. What had once been calculated risks became reckless gambles. Interceptions mounted, sacks accumulated. The offense that had clicked in 2022 became unwatchable. By November 2024, Jones was benched. By December, he was released. The experiment was over. 6 years, $160 million, and countless chances, all wasted. The Giants found themselves back at square one, only this time with less patience and fewer excuses. Ownership had invested in facilities, coaching, and personnel. They'd given Daboll and Schoen every resource to succeed. Now they demanded results. The pressure wasn't just on the field, it was in the building. Sources whispered about Daboll's job security. Fans openly questioned Schoen's roster construction. Media speculation swirled about a complete organizational overhaul. The 2025 draft represented their final opportunity to get it right. Not just competent, not just functional. Right. April 25th, 2025. Draft night arrived like Judgment Day. The Giants entered with a clear plan: build around young talent, change the culture, and bet on upside over safety. This wasn't just roster construction, it was organizational transformation. With their original 3rd overall pick, they selected Abdul Carter, the explosive linebacker from Penn State. Carter wasn't just the best defensive player available, he was a tone setter, violent, vocal, and relentlessly competitive, the kind of player who changed energy in a locker room. But the real statement came hours later. As the first round wound down, the Giants made their move. A trade up into the 28th slot. The price, a future 2nd round pick and additional day 3 capital. The target, a quarterback. Not the quarterback most expected, not the safe choice or the consensus pick. Jaxson Dart. The selection sent shockwaves through draft rooms and social media alike. Here was a franchise that had just signed 2 veteran quarterbacks, reaching for a developmental prospect with a late 1st round pick. But this wasn't panic, this was revolution. Because the Giants didn't want another caretaker. They didn't want another bridge quarterback who could manage games and avoid mistakes. They wanted fire. They wanted fight. They wanted someone who could walk into the most demanding media market in sports and not just survive, but thrive. In one night, they drafted their defensive identity and their offensive future. Carter and Dart, violence and artistry, present need and long-term vision. The reset wasn't just personnel, it was philosophical. No more playing it safe. No more accepting mediocrity. The New York Giants were all in on dangerous. Before the NFL world knew his name, before the eye black became his signature, before the records and the accolades, Jaxson Dart was just a kid from Kaysville, Utah, with an unshakable belief in himself and a father who refused to let that belief die. That obsession didn't translate to recruiting buzz at Roy High School. The Cardinals ran a wing tee offense, a ground-heavy attack that treated quarterbacks like glorified running backs. For 3 years, Dart handed off, blocked, and watched his arm talent waste away in a system that valued toughness over flash. His high school stats reflected the limitations. Barely 1,000 passing yards his senior year. No Power 5 offers, no recruiting stars, just one scholarship opportunity from a small FCS program that most football fans couldn't locate on a map. But Dart had other plans. For his senior year, he transferred to Corner Canyon High School in Draper, the same program that had produced Zach Wilson. Under coach Eric Kiar, Dart finally found a system that showcased his talent rather than buried it. The transformation was immediate and spectacular. In one season, he passed for 4,691 yards and a Utah State record 67 touchdowns with just 4 interceptions. He added 1,195 rushing yards and 12 more scores on the ground. The numbers were video game level ridiculous, but they only told part of the story. Dart didn't just put up stats, he put on a show. The Eye Black started that season, inspired by watching an LSU defensive back during a televised game. What began as simple imitation became signature style. War paint for a quarterback who played like he was heading into battle. First time he threw for me, I told him to bring his own receivers next time, joked one of his high school coaches. His arm talent was obvious. The system just finally showed it. By season's end, Dart was Max Prep's National Player of the Year and Gatorade's Utah Player of the Year. The 4-star recruit who'd been invisible 12 months earlier was suddenly the 13th ranked quarterback in the country. But the eye black and accolades were just symptoms of something deeper. Dart wasn't just talented, he was driven by something that couldn't be coached or recruited. The chip on his shoulder from those 3 years of anonymity, the belief that he belonged on any stage against any competition. That belief would carry him from Utah to USC to Ole Miss to the NFL, and it started in a backyard in Kaysville with a father who never stopped believing. When Jaxson Dart committed to USC in 2020, it felt like validation. The Trojans were college football royalty, a program that had produced Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, and Sam Darnold. For a kid from Utah who'd spent 3 years buried in a wing tee offense, Los Angeles represented the biggest stage possible. But USC was also a program in chaos. Head coach Clay Helton was already on the hot seat when Dart arrived. The offense was inconsistent, the recruiting was slipping, and the fan base was growing restless. Dart entered as the backup to senior Keaton Slovis, content to learn and develop in a pro-style system. Then opportunity knocked early. In week 4 against Washington State, Slovis went down with an injury. Dart, the true freshman from Utah, was thrust into Pac-12 action with little preparation and everything to prove. What followed was the stuff of legend. Dart completed 32 of 46 passes for 391 yards, the most ever by a USC freshman in his debut. He threw 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in a 45-14 blowout victory, playing through a torn meniscus that would require surgery after the game. The performance wasn't just statistically impressive, it was emotionally captivating. Here was a quarterback who didn't just manage the game, but commanded it. He threw strikes into tight windows, scrambled away from pressure, and played with a fearlessness that energized his teammates. For a brief moment, USC fans thought they'd found their next franchise quarterback. But college football is a business, and businesses make calculated decisions. After the season, USC fired Clay Helton and hired Lincoln Riley away from Oklahoma. Riley was a quarterback whisperer, an offensive genius who developed Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray into Heisman Trophy winners. But Riley didn't come alone. He brought Caleb Williams, his star quarterback from Oklahoma, and the crown jewel of the transfer portal. The message was clear. Williams was the future. Dart was the past. Rather than compete for a job he'd already earned, Dart made a different choice. He entered the transfer portal, announcing his decision, with a tweet that perfectly captured his mentality. Top floor, didn't take the elevator. I climbed my way up. The USC experience taught Dart valuable lessons about college football's political realities. Talent wasn't always enough. Performance didn't guarantee opportunity. Sometimes, through no fault of your own, you'd be replaced by someone else's vision. But it also taught him something else. He belonged on the biggest stages. He could perform under pressure, make plays when it mattered, and lead teammates who barely knew his name. The 391-yard debut wasn't just a statistical anomaly, it was proof of concept. Dart could play anywhere, against anyone, at any level. Now, he just needed the right opportunity to prove it. 5 minutes. That's how long it took after Jaxson Dart entered the transfer portal for his phone to ring. Lane Kiffin was on the other end, the Ole Miss head coach, who'd built a reputation for developing quarterbacks and maximizing offensive potential. Kiffin didn't just want Dart, he needed him. The Rebels were coming off a disappointing season and desperately needed a spark under center. The pitch was simple but compelling. Come to Oxford, learn a pro-style offense, and showcase your talent in the SEC, the toughest conference in college football. Dart was sold. The 2022 season began like a dream. Dart quickly won the starting job and led Ole Miss to a 7-0 start that had Rebel fans dreaming of playoff scenarios. He threw for 2,974 yards and 20 touchdowns while adding 614 rushing yards and another score on the ground. But then came the test of leadership that would define his Ole Miss career. Mid-season, Kiffin recruited Spencer Sanders, a high-profile transfer from Oklahoma State with starting experience and impressive credentials. The move was intended to create competition, but it felt like a direct challenge to Dart's authority. Lesser quarterbacks might have complained or demanded guarantees. Dart took it personally, in the best possible way. I was pissed, he later admitted. As a quarterback, when someone's trying to come in and take your job, you definitely take that in a disrespectful way. The competition pushed Dart to new levels, but it also revealed the volatility that would follow him throughout his career. The early season magic couldn't sustain itself. Ole Miss lost 5 of their final 6 games, including a devastating defeat to Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl. The collapse was humbling, but it was also educational. Dart learned that early success meant nothing without consistency. He discovered that SEC defenses were different, faster, more complex, more unforgiving than anything he'd faced. Most importantly, he learned that leadership wasn't just about performance, it was about perseverance. The following offseason, Dart dug deeper into Kiffin's system. The weekly game plans were more complex than anything he'd experienced, essentially functioning as new playbooks tailored to each opponent's weaknesses. Rather than memorizing routes, Dart was learning to think like a coach, understanding why plays were called and how to attack specific defensive concepts. His teammates noticed the growth, where once he'd been the talented transfer fighting for acceptance, he'd become the unquestioned leader of the offense. The locker room that had once debated his credentials now belonged entirely to him. Sanders, despite his pedigree, couldn't match Dart's combination of arm talent and leadership presence. By spring practice, the competition was over. Dart had not only survived the challenge, he'd used it as motivation to reach another level entirely. The stage was set for something special. The 2023 season announced Jaxson Dart's arrival as an elite college quarterback. What followed was the most successful campaign in Ole Miss history, an 11-2 record that shattered program expectations and established Dart As one of the SEC's premier players, he threw for 3,364 yards and 23 touchdowns with just 5 interceptions, while adding 391 rushing yards and 8 more scores on the ground. But statistics never captured the full scope of Dart's impact. The signature moment came against LSU in a primetime shootout that pitted Dart against Jayden Daniels, the future Heisman Trophy winner. The two quarterbacks, who trained together during high school, engaged in an epic duel that showcased Dart's clutch gene and competitive fire. "Me and Jayden, we've always had a really good relationship," Dart explained. "Everywhere we've been competing against each other, and we knew it was going to be a shootout." The season culminated with a Peach Bowl victory over Penn State. Ironically, the same Penn State team that featured Abdul Carter, who would later become Dart's teammate with the Giants. Dart's performance against one of the nation's top defenses validated his SEC credentials and announced his readiness for the next level. But 2024 was when Dart truly transcended expectations. His final college season was a masterpiece of consistent excellence. 4,279 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. He broke Eli Manning's school records for single-season passing yards and became the most prolific passer in Ole Miss history. The individual performances were legendary. Against Arkansas, he threw for over 800 yards in a single game, a video game performance that left defenders grasping at air. Against Georgia, playing on a high ankle sprain that required a halftime injection, he engineered one of the greatest upsets in program history, leading the Rebels to a 28-10 victory over the second-ranked Bulldogs. That Georgia game became the stuff of Ole Miss folklore. Dart, hobbling on his injured ankle, threw for 293 yards and 2 touchdowns, while adding 50 rushing yards. But it was his leadership that stood out most, rallying his teammates, ignoring the pain, playing with the kind of reckless abandon that defined his entire career. When the final whistle blew, Ole Miss fans stormed the field. Dart, tears streaming down his face, soaked in a moment that represented the pinnacle of his college career. The accolades followed: first-team All-SEC, Maxwell Award semifinalist, and consensus recognition as one of the nation's top quarterbacks. He finished his Ole Miss career having thrown for over 10,000 yards, surpassing even Eli Manning's program records. But perhaps the most impressive statistic was this. In 3 seasons under Dart's leadership, Ole Miss went from SEC afterthought to consistent contender, posting a combined 24-11 record and 2 bowl victories. He hadn't just put up numbers, he transformed a program's entire trajectory. And now, NFL scouts were paying attention. You either believe in the film or you believe in the scheme. That's the central debate surrounding Jaxson Dart. And it's divided scouts, analysts, and front offices across the NFL. On one side are those who see a system quarterback who benefited from Lane Kiffin's gimmicky offense. On the other are believers who recognize legitimate franchise-level talent disguised by college constraints. The statistical context supports both arguments. Dart threw nearly 53% of his passes off play action, or RPOs, the 3rd highest rate in college football. His deep ball production was staggering, leading the nation in yards per attempt at 10.7. Ole Miss frequently isolated receivers outside the hash marks, creating one-on-one matchups that Dart exploited with precision. Critics point to this as evidence of scheme dependence. They argue that Dart rarely had to make complex reads or process post-snap rotations like an NFL quarterback. His job, they claim, was to identify pre-snap matchups and take shots. Hardly the mental complexity required at the professional level. But that analysis misses the flashes that separate Dart from typical system quarterbacks. Against LSU, facing a disguised cover 3 rotation with a 6-man pressure look, Dart stood in the pocket, processed the coverage shift, and threw a strike into the soft backside window. That's not system quarterback play. That's elite processing under duress. Against Georgia, he manipulated a safety with his eyes, held a linebacker with body language, and delivered a perfectly placed corner route between zone defenders. The throw required anticipation, accuracy, and understanding of leverage concepts that translate directly to NFL success. His pocket presence is subtly elite. Dart doesn't just scramble. He climbs, slides, and resets while keeping his eyes downfield. Behind Washington State's porous offensive line, he took just 21 sacks in his final season, despite constant pressure. That's advanced pocket management. The arm talent is legitimate, but nuanced. Dart can make every NFL throw, from crossfield outs to layered deep balls. His ability to change arm angles, those signature sidearm deliveries, isn't just stylistic flair. It's functional, allowing him to find throwing lanes that conventional mechanics wouldn't permit. Mobility adds another dimension. With 1,540 career rushing yards, Dart isn't just a scrambler. He's a designed runner who can execute QB power concepts and RPOs with authority. He won't run a 4.440, but he'll consistently turn 3rd and 7 into first downs. Leadership may be his most underrated trait. Teammates gravitate toward his competitive fire. He's won every locker room he's entered, from USC's veteran group to Ole Miss's transfer-heavy roster. But concerns are legitimate. His footwork breaks down under pressure, leading to back foot throws and errant balls. His reckless running style invites injury. He's already suffered a high ankle sprain and taken numerous unnecessary hits. Most telling is his SPS, Star Predictor Score, rating, a perfect 100 out of 100, higher than Patrick Mahomes, 98, and Lamar Jackson, 99, entering their respective drafts. The system may have maximized Dart's production, but it didn't create his talent. Jaxson Dart wasn't just drafted by the Giants, he was designed for them. The organizational fit transcends scheme compatibility or personnel alignment. This is about identity, culture, and the kind of quarterback DNA that thrives in the pressure cooker of New York football. Start with Brian Daboll, the head coach whose career depends on Dart's development. Daboll's reputation was built on his work with Josh Allen, transforming a raw, strong-arm prospect into an MVP caliber quarterback. The parallels between Allen and Dart are striking. Both were overlooked recruits, both possessed elite arm talent paired with mobility, and both needed mechanical refinement to reach their ceiling. "I like confidence," Daboll said after Dart's pro day. "You can tell he came from a really good family. He's fun to be around, but he's also serious and focused. He wants to be great." The offensive personnel creates natural synergy. Malik Neighbors, the explosive rookie receiver, thrives on broken plays and contested catches, exactly the kind of opportunities Dart creates with his improvisational skills. Neighbors' route running ability and separation skills give Dart a legitimate WR1 target, something he rarely enjoyed at Ole Miss. Cam Scotabo brings the physical north-south running style that complements Dart's dual threat capabilities. The former Arizona State bruiser can handle 20-plus carries while also serving as a checkdown outlet in the passing game. His physicality matches Dart's mentality. Neither player seeks the easy path. The offensive line, while still developing, provides a foundation for growth. Andrew Thomas anchors the blind side, giving Dart protection on his vulnerable left side. But perhaps most importantly, Dart enters a situation with veteran mentorship. Russell Wilson's presence provides a masterclass in pocket movement, pre-snap reads, and leadership. Jameis Winston offers lessons in managing risk-taking and maintaining confidence through adversity. This isn't a sink or swim scenario. It's a development laboratory. Defensively, the Giants have constructed a unit that can keep games close while Dart develops. Abdul Carter's addition to a front seven featuring Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence creates a pass rush that can dominate opponents. If the defense keeps scoring manageable, Dart won't need to win shootouts as a rookie. Realistic year one expectations center on growth over production. 8 to 10 wins would represent massive organizational progress. More importantly, Dart needs to show command of the offense, improve decision-making, and the kind of clutch performances that build teammate confidence. The long-term projection is where Dart's ceiling becomes apparent. By year 2, with another offseason of development, the Giants could have a top 12 quarterback running an offense tailored to his strengths. RPO concepts, play-action bootlegs, and designed quarterback runs all fit his skill set. The market pressure is real, but not insurmountable. New York respects authenticity above perfection. Dart's competitive fire and blue-collar background align with the city's working-class identity. He won't be loved immediately, but he'll be respected if he competes. The Giants aren't just betting on talent, they're betting on fit. The story of Jaxson Dart isn't just about football statistics or draft positions or team building. It's about something deeper, something that transcends the game itself. It's about perception versus reality. For too long, the NFL has been obsessed with prototypes, the 6 feet 4-inch pocket passer with perfect mechanics, the 4-star recruit with flawless fundamentals, the quarterback who never makes mistakes because he never takes risks. Dart represents the antithesis of that thinking. He's not perfect. His footwork needs refinement. His decision-making can be aggressive to a fault. His playing style invites injury and criticism in equal measure. But he's also never been outworked, never been outcompeted, never been in a situation where he didn't eventually rise to the occasion. From 0 stars to first round, from wing T prisoner to SEC record breaker, from USC castoff to Giants franchise cornerstone, he didn't take the elevator, he built the damn staircase. That mentality matters in New York, where patience is scarce and expectations are suffocating. The Giants aren't just getting a quarterback, they're getting someone who understands adversity, who's comfortable being doubted, who feeds off the energy of proving people wrong. This pick represents more than roster construction. It's organizational philosophy. A declaration that the Giants are done playing it safe, done accepting mediocrity, done waiting for the perfect solution to fall into their lap. Sometimes the best answer isn't the cleanest one. Sometimes the right player isn't the obvious choice. Brian DeBole and Joe Schoen have bet their careers on that belief. They've looked at a quarterback with eye black and attitude and seen not just talent, but transformation. Not just potential, but identity. The risk is enormous. If Dart fails, the entire regime fails with him. But if he succeeds, if he becomes the leader and performer his flashes suggest he can be, then the Giants don't just get their franchise quarterback, they get their soul back. In a league increasingly defined by analytics and risk aversion, Jaxson Dart represents something that can't be quantified. The belief that heart and hunger can overcome any scheme or system. He's not the safe choice. He's not the obvious pick. But maybe for a franchise that's tried everything else, different is exactly what they need. The kid from Utah, who was told he wasn't good enough, is about to find out if he's everything the Giants need him to be. So, what do you think? Will Jaxson Dart actually start in week 1? Or will the Giants ease him into action behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston? Can a quarterback with his aggressive style survive the brutal NFC East, where Micah Parsons, Brian Burns, and elite pass rushers hunt quarterbacks for a living? And most importantly, is Dart the culture-changing franchise quarterback the Giants desperately need, or just another talented player who couldn't handle the pressure of New York football? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are you buying the Jaxson Dart hype, or do you think the Giants reached for a player who will never justify a first-round investment? If you believe this story is just beginning, and that Dart has the potential to transform the Giants from NFC East afterthoughts into legitimate contenders, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Make sure to ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest NFL content, because we'll be following Dart's journey every step of the way, from rookie minicamp to training camp battles, from preseason action to his eventual NFL debut. We're going to document whether this gamble pays off or becomes another cautionary tale. The kid from Utah isn't backing down from the biggest stage in football, and neither are we.